Welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Mare, and we're breaking down the world of pro wrestling.
From the eyes of a smart fan.
And a casual fan, and everyone in between.
Whether you're a lifelong fan
or just getting into it,
you've got a ringside seat with us. Welcome back to the Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling podcast, the show where the takes are hot, the opinions are questionable, and the love of pro wrestling is always undisputed.
And today we've got a guest who's done a little bit of everything. If you spend any time around Western Pennsylvania entertainment, sports, or wrestling, chances are you've heard his voice.
That's right. You can catch him on the airwaves on Mix 94.7 FM in Altoona, Pennsylvania. He's the man keeping the trivia crowd on their toes at the doghouse. And when the action gets underway inside the ring, he's one half of the commentary team bringing the excitement to the fans at 814 Wrestling.
He's energetic, he's passionate, he's got stories for days, and he's helped call some of the biggest moments in Johnstown's wrestling scene.
So whether you're tuning in for wrestling talk, radio stories, behind-the-scenes commentary insights, or maybe just to find out who dominates trivia night, you're in the right place.
Grab your favorite snack, turn the volume up, and get ready for a great conversation.
Joining us today, radio personality, trivia master, commentator, and all-around entertainer.
The
X-Man.
Wow, with an intro like that. All right, see you guys.
Well, this has been great. I will see you later.
See ya. Thanks.
It's all downhill from here.
Well, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, X?
Well, I am 44 years old. I've been watching professional wrestling since 1991. So I was 9 years old. I remember the first thing I ever saw was on Wrestling Challenge. The British Bulldog took on what then I called a preliminary bum because I was just learning the terms, and now we know them as jobbers or enhancement talent, I think is what they like to be called. And finally got to watch WrestleMania 8. My buddy taped it off pay-per-view, and I've been hooked ever since.
That's awesome.
So we're coming up on well over 30 years of watching. That was 91. I always say my favorite WrestleMania is 8. I could recite it word for word. So can Drew Shannon.
That was the first WrestleMania that I remember watching beginning to end live when it happened.
Yeah, the first one I ever watched live as it happened was 10. But up until that, back in the day, you got together with your buddies and all pitched in money and got the pay-per-views. We did that up until, we all got older and had families, and still to this day, my best friend of 40 years will come over and we'll watch the WWE premium live events.
I know, they got fancy on us, changed it up there. I feel like you and Steve would get along great because he's been like a lifelong fan too, and so he's got probably the same amount of years under his belt with wrestling as you do.
Yeah, no. It's always good to see you guys coming out to the shows. We thank you for the support. Yeah, so I'm ready to go. I live locally in the area. Like you said, I work in radio. I've been doing that. This will be my 24th year doing radio with my wife. We have 4 dogs, 3 kids, a grandson, and I have a fat orange cat. So
Yes, that's awesome.
I have to say my fat orange cat because when Danielle and I met, she came with 3 kids. I came with a fat orange cat.
I came with the cat too, and to this day, they are frenemies, friends and
Yeah,
enemies.
that would sum up Mrs. O and Danielle's relationship as well.
We tolerate each other. It is what it is.
We call her the wicked stepmother.
That's so funny.
So, yeah, ask away. I'm an open book.
So the connection between radio and wrestling, you're not the first person that I've seen with this. How did that come about?
Well, I met Cass Edison. I'll try to keep it in character, but his real name's Mike. Back in 2006, he came to work at Forever Broadcasting as a account executive. we got to talking and found out he was a wrestling fan and, we're talking and all that good stuff. And then All or Nothing Wrestling was in Johnstown, then ran by Randy Collier, who we now know as Randall Fairway. At the time, he was the ringmaster, and a local guy in the area wanted to purchase it and really promote it. And this was back in 2009. Kess shoots me a text. He's like, "Hey, we're gonna do this TV show with this local wrestling company. Are you interested?" And I'm like, "Yes." So then a couple weeks go by and he's like, "Hey, we're having a show November 19th and November 14th, excuse me, in Nicktown. We need a ring announcer." I'm like, "Well, okay, I've never done that, but been watching wrestling for a long time. I'm sure I can do it." Woke up the morning of the show and I was super sick. And I text Cass and I'm like, "I'm probably not gonna make it." And all he said to me is like, "X, we need you." So I went to Walmart and bought the best cold medicine I could and took the drive up to Nicktown, and next thing I knew, I was the official ring announcer for the original AON, which we like to call AON Lou. So, yeah, the connection is radio, and Drew Shannon, he does radio too, and, I don't know, it happens a lot in indie wrestling, like, you'll meet a commentator or an announcer, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, well, I'm a local radio personality." So it's not just here, it's all over indie wrestling.
We're hoping to get Drew Shannon on the pod. I haven't reached out to him yet, but he seems like a cool guy, and, like, anytime we've seen him at a show, we just love him, and he's such a great ring announcer, and so he seems like a fun guy to have, so we're definitely it'll be fun to get to chat with him eventually too.
Yeah, no, Drew's a great guy, Mike Edwards, Doc, Todd Taylor, the whole commentary team for 814. I've been working with Mike Edwards and Drew Shannon. This is our 16th year. So we started together in 2010. So it's funny, I actually started in AON before Mike Edwards and Drew Shannon. A little history, because everybody just remembers the AON Rundown, which aired locally on Fox 8 and then moved to ABC 23. And we did over 100 episodes of that show together. And you can catch all those episodes on the AON Facebook or not YouTube page. All of them are up there.
Oh, I'll definitely check that out. That's
Yeah,
so
I'll have to send you
fun.
guys a link. You can see that the X-Man used to be double his size.
So
That's awesome.
our brother-in-law, you know him, the real C4.
And I love C4.
He was like
814 Hall of Famer.
yes, he is a Hall of Famer. He was just talking so highly of you, and he was like, "Ask him about his weight loss journey. He's so proud of himself. He's done so well." And I know you've avoided, like, fizzy drinks for, like, 10 plus years. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, I have not touched anything carbonated or caffeinated. Obviously, if you drink a decaffeinated beverage, there's a little bit of caffeine. I'm talking like I haven't downed like a Dr. Pepper and a Mountain Dew in over 10 years.
That's
That's awesome.
incredible. That is I mean, every year I
Thank
try
you.
to quit soda, and it is so hard to quit. I mean, and I do diet, I love diet soda, but, like, I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a tangent here, but what has kinda kept you going over the last, 10 plus years with that?
A streak. I'm a re
Yes.
a streak. I wake up and I keep a counter on my phone how many days it's been since I took my last sip of soda. I'm a recovering what I like to call soda jerk. You have alcoholics and you have drug addicts, it's all a disease, really it is. Addiction can be anything. You can be addicted to food. I was addicted to food. I still am.
Same here.
You can be addicted to cigarettes, smoking, alcohol. So I was addicted to soda and food, and I had a doctor tell me I wouldn't live to see 40, and that scared me. And I was like, you know what, you need to do something. So I did. I had geriatric surgery in 2016 and lost half of myself. I'm still a big dude, but you know, I'm not knocking on death's door because obviously I made it to 44. So
Yeah, that's incredible. That is so awesome. Great job for
thank you.
everything you've accomplished.
Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
and
it up.
because of that, I was able to wrestle again. I don't do too many matches, but we can talk about the history of the original AON. I have been in a few battle royals or Royal Rumble matches. I guess I can say that here. I don't think WWE is going to come after us.
No, we're small
We
potatoes
welcome
right
it.
now.
Okay, well, when you guys get huge, you might have like Triple H knocking on your door. Hey, Mr. Wrestling.
We may or may not have some insights to the legal team there, so
Okay.
What? We do? Who told you that? But yeah, let's hear a little bit of this history of AON wrestling. And you said you wrestled a little bit, and so that definitely,
Yes.
I mean, I think that probably lends itself to also being a commentator, having like a little piece of, another aspect of the business. How was it being in those kinds of matches, the battle royals and the rest, and the Royal Rumble WWE term?
Okay, so my first Rumble match happened at War for Territory 4. That was back in 2011 at the convention center here in Altoona. I actually won that battle royal, last eliminating Manchild. We, it was, obviously it's pro wrestling. I had at ringside a candy bar hid. And when it came down to us too, I had Drew Shannon hand me the candy bar, threw it over the top rope, and Manchild dives over the top rope, and I win the Rumble match. And I was guaranteed a championship match against whoever was the AON Pennsylvania champion. I never did get that title shot, obviously, but that was fun. Back in 2017, I had the chance to participate in a Rumble style match in Phoenix Pro Wrestling. And my most recent and last endeavor in the ring was 2021. I participated in another Rumble match, and now I think my ring days are very, 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 very low, or probably ain't gonna happen. I was diagnosed with arthritis in both my knees, and we're looking at knee replacement surgery when I get into my 50s, and they're like, "You probably don't wanna do that anymore. Can barely cut the grass sometimes."
That's hilarious. But you did have a exciting sort of wrestling moment at the most recent Thundercade, is
Yes,
that correct? I'd love to hear
yes.
about that.
So that actually is a storyline that we're doing, and I'm really excited for it. I've been doing this 16 years, and I've always been a babyface. And I was, not to toot my own horn, I was pretty over, and it was a self build. You don't do it on purpose as an announcer, but the X-Man character is basically my personality turned up to 100. I like to laugh. I like to make people laugh. I'm a goofball, and I'm caring, and I'm loving. So it's going to be hard to become a vicious heel. But I used to backyard wrestle, and when I backyard wrestled, I played a vicious heel. So, yeah, AC Norway, Rick, he approached me and said, "We want to do this storyline. Are you in?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's try it." So, a bunch of the guys, when it was over, came up to me, and when they saw me getting in the ring, they're like, "Oh, no, X Man's gonna get beat up again," because that's normally what would happen. Anytime I get in the ring to, like, confront somebody, I got beat up because let's beat up on the face announcer to really get that person over as a heel. But when I hit AC Norway in the back with a microphone, I was like that crowd was like and Mike Edwards, and if you ever been in the ring before, and I know your brother-in-law C4 would probably vouch, you sometimes don't hear the crowd because 'cause you're caught in the moment and you don't wanna mess up, and it's like, I'm just in my zone, and I could hear, like, the boos and, when you go in out of the ring and people are, like, yelling at you, and I'm like, "Ah, okay, I'm not used to this," I'm used to getting, like, hugged and smacking hands and, people being upset I got beat up, and after the show, I ran into a bunch of the guys. Tyler Caton comes up to me, he goes, "I saw you getting in the ring," and I thought, "Oh, no, X is getting beat up." He goes, "Then all of a sudden you hit Rick." Nobody knew really what was happening except for the creative team and the guys involved. We wanted to keep that as a surprise for the boys, in the back. And yeah, and I had one of the wrestlers' girlfriends come up and go, "I didn't realize how good of an actor you really were." She's like, "You were doing your whole character as the X-Man, and then all of a sudden you just like boom to a totally different person." I was like, "I'll take that as a compliment." Hopefully, we get the footage up soon. How it goes in 814, we try to get those matches up before the next show. So, but Drew Shannon, he does all of our video editing and he does a fantastic job. And as you know, Drew has a daytime job in radio, so he's a busy
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I've been watching some of the wrestlers have posted a few things. I think Godric, he was our most recent guest. He posted his match that he just had the three-way, and we were able to see it then. Um, and so, yeah, I've just been, I follow all of the wrestlers on 814, so I've just been kind of picking up bits and pieces here because we were at the Outer Banks that for that show, but um, it was an
Dang.
exciting show. I
It
read the
was.
whole breakdown of the show on the 814 Facebook page, and I was like, I wish I was
You
there.
missed a good show. Thundercade definitely had the big match feel from start to bottom. The guys were fantastic and the girls were fantastic. I know we don't have too many female wrestlers in 814 at this time, but even just behind the scenes, wrestlers' wives or boyfriends and girlfriends, just big family affair. And it's always good to come together and do a show like that. We had a pretty decent sized crowd for a very warm, night in early June or late June, I guess, early summer. So the crowd went home happy. Surge and Savage, D Savage tore down the house in the main event. Thomas Mathis was his normal cocky self, and we saw Tyler Caton, Daniel Exotic Gaze. They split. Zach Ramsey's
Yeah.
took the tag belts. It was an incredible show with a lot of twisted turns. And then to top it off, when you thought it couldn't get any more, I turned heel,
I
which
know. That
like
is so exciting.
it was. It's something cool that I've always wanted to do. In the original AON, we came up with an idea where I'd get hit in the head and forget who I was, and I'd become this really bad British impersonation and called Xavier Mannington III, which is technically the X-Man character's real name. I don't know if we're gonna use that or not, but I was gonna be like a really bad William Regal. And then like this was gonna happen for like 2 or 3 months, and then I got hit in the head again, but we never did it. And I'd be
Well,
back.
you could still do it.
Well, I turned heel as I'm gonna be an evil owner. So 'cause in Eclipse Wrestling, we did a storyline where me and AC Norway went in together to buy a portion of Eclipse Wrestling, so we had a minority stake. Well, eventually, he screwed me out of that and took over Eclipse Wrestling, screwed over Xavier Diamond, so, yeah. So it's kinda like story from, like, 2018, 2019, you know what I mean? Like, through the years, it's like, well, the X-Man has a reason for being mad at AC Norway. It just took me
Yeah.
a while. It just took me a while.
I love that history though. Just how it like that's wrestling is it takes
Yes.
years and years and years, to build to something and it's an ongoing like on again off again feud and I think that that's like kind of the beauty of wrestling. But babe, I'm going to let you ask a question because I'm the chatty Cathy of Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling.
Might just become Mrs. Wrestling with Mr.
Exactly. Featuring Mr. Wrestling.
Yeah.
So X, you've been in professional wrestling since 2009. What is it about pro wrestling that keeps you passionate about it all the way to today?
I think it's the thrill of the crowd. I love to perform. Even as a kid, I didn't do wrestling matches, but I was a kid, I would perform for my family members at birthday parties, whether doing a little dance, a little skit. So I've always had that performing bug in me. But even to this day, I'll look at Mike Edwards and Drew and Doc and Todd before we come out in the curtain, and I'll go, there they are, the goosebumps. And I've been doing this for 16 years. And just talking about it now, I'm getting goosebumps. Just thinking about waiting to come out, and seeing all the fans. And a lot of those fans are regulars and they become more like family. Like we have Mama Mindy, who has been coming to our shows for 16 years. Her late son, RJ, was a huge fan and we miss him dearly. Sadly, he passed away in 2018. And that just really shocked us all. But yeah, it's the story, obviously. Wrestling is storyline driven, the action. I look at it as a way for 2 to 3 hours, I get to forget about what's happening in the world, watch some wrestling, and play a character, and then when it's over and you're driving home and you come down off that adrenaline rush, you're like, "That's what you live for." And I always say I will do it till it's no longer fun, and it's 16 years and it's still fun, so
Awesome.
So what's the most valuable lesson you've learned during your time in pro wrestling?
Always listen and take advice. I mean, I would never sit here and tell you, what to do in the ring, but if you come to me and ask me for advice on, as a fan, I could tell you as a fan what I thought and what we could do to better. Or even like if Drew would say, "Hey, actually, when you do this, or we help each other out all the time." And when you work with some individuals, like I said, I've been with Mike Edwards and Drew Shannon for 16 years. We go all the way back to the original AON before we relaunched it in 2019. Just you need to listen. Obviously, the promoter is who's in charge, and you may not agree with everything. There's been times where I pitched an idea and they're like, "No, X, that's just stupid." You know, uh, and some of the times I pitched ideas that were just literally ludicrous. I wanted to do a storyline, and I hope Mike Edwards and Drew watch this, and Kess and AC. I pitched a storyline where a character got eaten by a bear, and I was obsessed for like 4 months. I'm like, "We really need to have Loverboy Lou was his name, get eaten by a bear." And they're like, "Okay, so then what?" I'm like, "Then he comes out dressed like a mummy, and we call him Mummy Lou." And they're like, "No, X."
That
So,
is hilarious.
it's fun. Like I said, and just going, you guys come to shows as fans. It's an adrenaline rush, even if you go to, like, WWE or AEW or TNA or back in the day, WCW, each show has a different feel. And Thundercade on Saturday night had that WrestleMania all-in feel. You know what I mean? I'm trying to pick, the big one from WWE, and is All-In AEW's big one? I gotta be honest with you, I don't watch AEW as much. They kinda
Oh, you're
like
missing out. You're missing
I
out.
I try to watch it, but I'm a busy person, so there's enough wrestling now compared to when we were kids. You used to have to watch the syndicated shows before Monday Night Raw was even a thing. And then WCW had Saturday Night, which was like, you know, okay, this is okay. And then Nitro debuted, and you're like, oh wow, what's Saturday night? Now
Yeah,
I gotta
I
be
I
honest.
I watch entirely too much wrestling. I watch it in languages I don't even speak, so I get that.
Now I get that too. I try to watch other indie feds on YouTube. I do have a passion for watching sometimes some backyard wrestling just to see what the kids are doing, because I did that. I did that in the '90s. I like to say we did that before it was cool. And I'll talk to my buddies that I did it with, and I'm like, "Man, if we were just kids now with all the technology." We used to have to drag the boombox in the yard and borrow mom and dad's camcorder, and then we started driving and we're like, "All right, well, the next show is gonna be here at 8 o'clock. Be there." So
Now you can buy a ring on the internet.
yeah. We always said we were gonna buy a ring when we were younger, but we never did. And as a joke, we always had a running gag. We never had a bell. We would just go ding, ding, ding. And that was our running joke in our backyard fit. We never had a bell.
That is so much fun.
Yeah.
So you are so creative, like, what inspires your creativity? It sounds like you do have, like, a plethora of ideas and things that you've probably pitched throughout the years, and so, like, where do you draw inspiration from?
Wrestling, or music. I love music. I'll hear a song on the radio or playing a song when I'm sitting there, and I'm like, "Oh, well, somebody could use this as a theme." Most of the time it gets shot down but creativity has just always been a thing. I if you listen to my show, you hear fundamentals of wrestling and old TV shows, as well as just stupid stuff. If you listen there, all those liners on my show, I wrote, the X-Man, it's 100% caffeine free. Yeah, he's crazy. Stuff like that. The bumpers, as I call them, will have wrestling reference. I have one where Bob Backlund yelling that he never ate marijuana. I've never eaten marijuana. Who eats it? Bob Backlund apparently hasn't.
That's hilarious. That is so fun. The radio is so much fun. I've been on the radio a couple times. Obviously, it was never my job, but I've been on a few like segments and stuff, and it is always so much fun to interact on the radio, but also like we talk behind the curtain in wrestling, behind the curtain in radio, the amount of things that you guys have to like juggle and do and like things need to be recorded and like it's
Oh
it's a
yeah.
big job. It's not just,
It's not just sitting there playing music,
yes.
production to it. I know from speaking, Drew Shannon's a production director. I am as well. Those commercials you hear, we had something to do with it, whether it being assigning to be done or producing, and that's where the creativity comes. When you're writing liners, I'll listen to other radio stations for ideas, or I'll just think, hey, this sounds good. Let's see what it sounds like. And if it doesn't, we don't air it. If it
Yeah.
sucks, we don't air it. If it's good, oh yeah, get that crap on the air. I almost swore.
It's where you could say anything you want. You could say any
Okay.
bad words. Yeah.
I almost said the S word. I know this isn't radio, so
Yep, it's
I
totally
can get away with
uncensored.
that.
Yes, you could say anything that you want.
So how would you define success at this stage in your career in both, radio and, 814 wrestling?
That's a good question. So, obviously, in radio, the goal is to have a morning show, which I do every weekday morning from 6 until 10. And the other goal would be to be a program director. Back in 2017 to 2020, I was a program director of Hot 100.1, which is no longer on the air. Seven Mountains, the cluster across town, changed some things around. So I was at Forever Broadcasting from 2002 to 2020. I honestly thought I'd be there forever. And then when the COVID pandemic hit, that's when I was cut loose. So I was off the air for about 6 months, and then I landed cross town at the competition Leitner Communications. But just like in wrestling, there's people in radio, that I still talk to over there. It's like these are people I grew up with. You know what I mean? I spent 17 and a half years over there. Those are people that, watched me grow up and taught me. And so a success would be a morning show. And I think in wrestling, success, and we all know wrestling's predetermined. It's a form of entertainment, but I think for me it was finally getting in the ring and just wrestling because it's something that I've loved for my entire life. So to actually be in a match, and I remember my mom and dad was there, my sisters, and Drew and Edwards did not know it was going to happen, and that's a cool thing to do on commentary. I don't like to know what's going to happen unless I'm involved. Or if you're running sound, you obviously need to know what's gonna happen. But, like, when we're on commentary, I think only Mike Edwards knows what's gonna happen. I do not like to, I wanna react, so I did not see Tyler Caton and Daniel Exotic breaking up. So that is a raw, emotional feeling that's coming out on tape, when we're doing the commentary. You want that. You don't want to be like, I knew this was gonna happen."
Yeah, you
Same
want
with
it to be
the
a surprise.
Same with the heel turn. Only a select few of the creative team, obviously Todd, Joey P, myself, Mike Edwards, they all knew. A couple guys in the back that are on the creative team, they knew. But other than that, it was a complete shock to not only the fans, but probably about 95% of the locker room. They were, guys were coming up to me. They're like, we never saw that coming.
Yeah, I think whenever I went on Facebook the next day and it came up that you had turned heel, you clotheslined AC, and you said like, "I don't even like country music" or something like that.
That
Oh
is
my
true.
gosh. I was like, "No way!" Because like when you come out, you clearly are like the baby face. Everybody loves you. Everybody's cheering for you. Like it is such a warm welcome when you come out at the start of the show. And so when I read it on Facebook, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we get to talk to him about this."
Yeah, no, and I knew going into when you reached out to me a couple weeks ago that that was happening, and this is something that we had been planning to do since about late last year in the fall. We were gonna do it on the January show, but if you remember, our December show got canceled due to the weather. It was also Hall of Fame, and AC and we all decided that the Hall of Fame needs to be, that's something that needs to stand out. We don't want to take from that. So we pushed it back to February. Well, some of the guys that were involved with the storyline couldn't make it, and then I couldn't make a show, and Danielle had her surgery. So there was just other things. It was like, okay, well, we decided on Thundercade. No matter what, we got to do this because we've been sitting on this now for about 7, 8 months, almost a year. This has been in the works. And that just happens. That's pro wrestling. People get hurt, lives happen. It's just like anything else. Football players, hockey players get hurt. You know, I've seen so many times where we have this awesome, awesome storyline. And I go back to like 2017, 2018. Black Lightning was in an awesome storyline with Randall Fairway, and Black Lightning got really sick. We almost lost him. And I remember going to visit him in the hospital a few times. And he's like, "Oh, I just want to wrestle so bad at the War Memorial." And we were scheduled to have a pro wrestling night after a Tomahawks game. And it was finally going to happen that Black Lightning would get to wrestle in the War Memorial in front of his hometown. Sadly, he couldn't make it. But wrestling, the wonderful sport that it is, he finally got to in 2022 at the first Thundercade. And I I just remember that day so well. I pulled him aside. I was like, "You are finally gonna get to wrestle at the War Memorial in front of your hometown." He's like, "I know, isn't this great?" So, you look at it, yeah, it's a show. Obviously, my real name's not the X-Man or Xavier Mannington. Obviously, Black Lightning's not his real name, but the X-Man always thought it was. He would call his mom he would call Black Lightning's mom, Mama Lightning. There was times on commentary where I just call him Black, and we loved it, you know? It was like, that's the X-Man character then. Obviously, we're tweaking it a little bit, and there will always be that goody goody X-Man. I'm sure he'll come back out within the next year or 2, this will be a fun ride. I never done it before, but like you said, the sport and the story, when people say pro wrestling is fake, I'm like, "Would you say Star Wars is fake?" You don't watch, The Walking Dead and be like, "Ah, this is fake." At least pro wrestling could actually happen.
Yeah.
There's no zombies at my back door, right?
Right. Steve, so when I watched wrestling when I was in high school, the Attitude Era, like, was where I kind of watched, and then I didn't watch. And then I met Steve like almost 11 years ago now, and I've been watching ever since with him. And I remember being like, "Well, isn't it fake?" Because everybody says that doesn't watch regularly. And he was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, they write a script and they follow the script. It's predetermined, but like it takes real athleticism to pull off this storyline. Like, is wrestling fake?" And like, it absolutely is not. Like, people really have to be able to do what the story they're telling,
Look
and
at
so
all look at all the injuries. Stone Cold Steve Austin getting dropped on his head by Owen Hart. Big E breaking his neck live on TV. Chris Benoit had his neck broken by Taz in the or no, Sabu in the original ECW. Hulk Hogan. There's an example. How many times did we hear about Hogan's back? I mean, he did that leg drop for what, 30 years? That can't be good on your spine. Ric
no,
Flair. Oh, enough said. You know,
yeah, it was
look at
a
Cody Rhodes a couple years back with that
yeah.
torn pec and still came out and wrestled. And every time he took a bump, I'm going, ah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Now
I
I
mean,
I hate it when people like, that's fake. It's not fake. Yes, it's predetermined and it's scripted. They know what they're gonna do, but on the fly, you have to change in the ring. Look at Rock and Hogan from WrestleMania 18. Rock went into that match as the face, Hogan the heel. What happened in that match? The crowd cheered Hogan and booed The Rock, so they had to switch on the fly and change their whole match.
yeah,
Which only professionals could do that, and that's the wonderful thing about indie wrestling. They're young up and comer professional wrestlers, Daniel Exotic, he's like, what, 24, 25 years old,
yeah,
other individuals, and then I'm sitting there, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an old fart, I'm 44." Watching these kids wrestle, and I remember when I broke in the original AON and saw the guys like Shane Malice, Zach Rain, Randall Fairway, C4, Coma Clayton. I could tell you so many fun stories about just hanging out in the back with those guys. Some of them would probably get us arrested in today's world. But yeah, no. I remember my first show, I didn't feel comfortable getting in the ring because that was my first time ring announcing any wrestling show. And I just said to Cass, plus I was really sick. I was like, just let me sit here. I'll do it from here. Same thing in December of 2009. I didn't feel comfortable getting in the ring because I felt like I hadn't earned that yet. And I remember a couple of the guys, Black Lightning, one of them, he came up while I was ring announcing after his match, just said to me, he goes, "You are doing a fantastic job and the boys are loving you." And after the show, everybody came up, "Hey, thanks for coming out." And that's the thing, you say to everybody after the show. I don't like to be like, "Hey, dude, that match was terrible." Unless now I'm in a place that I think, because I've been doing this so long, that I can be like, "Hey, this didn't go over very well with the crowd." We had that same issue. A ref took an impromptu bump. By wrestling standards, it looked awful if it was taken by a wrestler. But I said to him, "You don't want it to look like Shawn Michaels just took a choke slam from The Undertaker. You're not a wrestler." He goes, "Well, I didn't think of it that way." I'm like, "No." It's like, if you made it look so good, you know what I mean? It was supposed to look bad. You're a referee. Come on. And now, if you were a wrestler and you took that, I'd be like, "Dude, that looked like crap."
That's like Vince McMahon when he got the stunner from Stone Cold and everybody bounces and it's like insane and Vince McMahon just was like he flopped over. But your
Especially the
perspective,
first one at Madison Square Garden.
yes.
He goes and just rolls, and I remember watching it as a kid being like, But then you got guys like The Rock or Shane McMahon. Oh my gosh, but The Rock sold the Stone Cold Stunner, I think, best.
I just
Like,
love it when they're like they bounce so high, like it's so insane. Like
Scott Hall at
Scott
WrestleMania
Hall had a
8.
great one.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
but then you have McMahon who or remember Linda took one at Homecoming the one time, and that was bad. And Donald Trump, the president, took one. It was really bad.
That was a bad
Or
one.
yeah. But then you figure the last stunner that Steve Austin gave Vince McMahon was what, WrestleMania 38, and it was awful. And I'm like,
Oh,
"Vince, you're like 76 years old, 77. It's time to stop." I wish I had that man's energy. I don't want his legal troubles, but I'd love his energy.
Yeah, definitely not his legal troubles.
Maybe some of his money. That might help. But
absolutely, the money.
He
just
could give us all a little piece and it would be just fine for all of us.
Steve Marr, here's $100,000.
I'd settle for an interview. I know
Yeah.
a lot.
I think I would settle just for a handshake and a selfie. I know
Even
people.
just a off the air conversation.
Yeah, I think that would be something fun. So that takes me to a cool incident, because I've been doing this so long. But in the late 90s, ECW used to come to the Jaffa. And we all know the original ECW was very fan friendly. And we had gotten to talking with Nova and not Chris Chetty, but Danny Doring and the Roadkill at the one show. And they're like, we used to give Nova our backyard wrestling tapes. He loved watching them. And then he'd be like, "Hey, next month when we're back in town or, when we're back in December, can you bring me another tape?" And we have somewhere on a cassette, a buddy of mine interviewing Supernova on a micro cassette that I put on a cassette. And he's like, "This is my guys. They bring me tapes." So anyhow, this is in December of '98. ECW comes to the Jaffa, and we're in the back talking with the guys, and they're like, "Hey, go out front, wait to come in. When you come in, just go have a seat wherever you want. It's fine." We told security. So we sit down in like the third row, and security comes up and they're talking to us, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Doring said you guys are good. Hey, they want you to help tear down the ring after the show." All right, sure. So we tear down the ring, and as payment, they gave us an ECW shirt. We got to pick. I picked the Sabu shirt. My buddy picked ECF and W. I was like, "I can't do that. I'm 16 years old. My mom and dad might not like that." So we're getting ready to leave, and this is like 2 a.m. And Roadkill and Doring come up, and Nova, they go, "Hey, we want you to meet somebody." We go out into the hallway. There standing Paul Heyman. I'm like starstruck. He comes up and he's like, "Well, I want to thank you for your support of Extreme Championship Wrestling." And I'm like just sitting there. I'm like, "Thank you, sir." He's like, "Don't call me sir, call me Paul." And it was just And he talked to us for like 20 minutes about wrestling. And he was like, well, we're looking to bring a pay-per-view to Altoona. Well, that didn't happen because the Shriners did not like the extreme style of ECW. I remember going up to my grandmother's house, and my grandfather was a Shriner. He looks at me and goes, Davey, did you enjoy that ECW? I'm like, yeah. I was like, I can't wait for him to come back. He goes, yeah, they're never coming back. They're too vulgar and violent. I'm like, son of a, ah. So they did like 3 or 4 shows here. And then in 2006, they brought the relaunch ECW, which I like to call Tuesday Night Heat. That was not ECW, but that was one of those things where I was just like, did this really happen? And this is before cell phones with cameras. Like now you could just be like, can I grab a selfie, Mr. Heyman? This is before that. I remember coming home and my mom was waiting up for me and she's like, David, you better get your ass out of bed for school tomorrow morning. I'm like, yes, mom. And I'm going to wear my new Sabu shirt and tell everybody I met Paul Heyman tonight. I always wondered if I could reach out to Nova and be like, hey, do you remember me? I used to give you some of our backyard wrestling tapes.
You never know. He
You
might
never
he
know.
might just remember.
He might. He was a fun one, and Spike Dudley was fun. All the original ECW guys, Dreamer, they were just, the only person I had to run in that was really bad, he was drunk, and that was Tommy Rich.
Wildfire.
So I have a funny story of that too. So at the October show, Tracy Smothers and Tommy Rich comes up to us. They're trying to get to Pittsburgh. And this is before GPS and MapQuest even probably. And we're like, yeah, you want to get out here. It's 22 and you want to go east. He's like, oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. But we said that because Tommy Rich was being a jerk to us. And so the next show in December, Tracy comes up to us, didn't recognize us. And he looks at us and he goes, hey, can you guys tell us how we can get to Pittsburgh the fastest? He goes, last time we were here, some assholes told us to go the wrong way. And it was my best friend who did it. And we're like, yeah, you want to go out here and you want to take 22 West. He goes, yeah, we were like all of a sudden seeing signs like Harrisburg. We're like, what the heck?
That is so funny.
But that's the best part is like giving wrestlers, directions to the next town because you figure they're in Altoona. You're like, hey, we got to get to, Pittsburgh. So,
I got to meet 2 ECW originals, at shows. At Madison Square Garden, I ran into Joel Gertner and talked to him for a little bit, so that was a bucket list for me. And then at a big time wrestling show in Holyoke, Massachusetts, I got to meet and talk to Shane Douglas.
uh,
And we talked about Johnstown, and he told me a story how when they came to Johnstown that Sabu got lost and couldn't figure out how to get in, and Shane Douglas said he would just yell at him and say, "There's one highway in and one highway out. If you just stay going east from Pittsburgh, you run into us."
yeah. Shane Douglas, I only met him once. It was a pro wrestling night at Johnstown at the Tomahawks game. He was there in the late Dominic DeNucci, who was a sweetheart. So was Shane Douglas, who I've always been a huge fan of him. I'm one of them few people that loved the Dean Douglas character. I
Really?
Yes. In fact, one of my backyard wrestling gimmicks was based off of that. I called myself the Dean Dave Douglas. It was total ripoff of Dean Douglas. And I'm standing there talking to him, and I'm like, I know you're probably not going to like me saying this, but my favorite gimmick of yours was Dean Douglas. And he just started laughing. And I was like, now hear me out. I was a 13-year-old boy, and I just thought that was hilarious because I knew your work in the indies and even in ECW and what you had done in ECW. He goes, and then all of a sudden you show up on Monday Night Raw as a teacher, and I was in love with the character. But I followed him. Obviously we know what he did in ECW after WWE, cut him loose. I think he actually quit. Come to think of it, I don't blame him. Looking back at it now, I was like, yeah, that was pretty bad.
The
But
franchise run was great.
yes, the triple threat with Candido and Bigelow.
Got
Those are
Bigelow up there.
yeah. There's another one, Bam Bam, Chris Candido. Um, yeah, I could talk about wrestling till tomorrow morning, you know. I remember at the one show in ECW, One Man Gang was on the card, and we started chanting, "Akeem, Akeem." We got about, 1,500 people chanting Akeem. All of a sudden, in the middle of the match, he starts dancing like Akeem.
Nice.
And we just started laughing, and he started laughing, and after the show, he comes up to us, he goes, "I never tried to keep my character so hard. You guys are having me crack up because 'cause we're just, like, 3 rows back going, Akeem, Akeem."
That's so fun.
Most of the guys I've met have been sweethearts. You run into a few that have been, uh, I'll tell you what, the nicest was last year was Ted DiBiase. He came to the Altoona Curve, and he talked to you like he knew you forever. He was just like, "Hey, blah, blah, blah." Jake Roberts, Diamond Dallas Page, he was another one that
That
was
I
that
love
was mine.
DDP.
yeah.
That was mine. I met DDP after Starrcade '97 at a gas station outside of DC. It was him and, Paul White, and we you're 12 years old, and you just watched Starrcade, the giant stands out in a gas
Yeah.
station, so we pull over and we see him, and he's like, "No autographs," and we were all bummed out, and
Mhm.
here comes DDP, "We'll sign everything, brother," and it was
He did
awesome.
that he did that at a house show in '97 at the War Memorial. We were just standing back, where they come out. He just rips open the curtain, he goes, "Who wants an autograph?" And he just signed everything. Couldn't have been any nicer. Um, we ran into after, the first Raw on TNN. We went to a local Unimart State College. We're just hanging out there, and in walks X-Pac, Sean Waltman.
What?
Yeah, and I'm not even paying attention. I'm, like, looking at drinks, and he's, like, literally, like, 3 feet away from me, and he has somebody with him, probably, like, an agent or a bodyguard or something, and my buddies yell, "Dave, look who's beside you," and I go, "Oh, hey, it's X-Pac," and this guy goes, "Yeah, just leave him alone." I was like, "It's okay, it's not like The Rock walked in here." And he looked at me and goes, "Gee, thanks." I'm like, "I'm just messing," and I walked over and shook his hand, and then Sean Waltman came to Johnstown with a local, Sean Waltman has a history of drug abuse, and he's clean and sober now. He came and did a speaking series for I forget where at. It was at some fire hall, and he took pictures and talked about his, how he got clean, and I came up to him like, "You probably don't recognize me," and I told him that story. He goes, "I don't remember, but I was always pretty high then." But the best part is Mike Edwards had this old DX notebook with had Road Dogg and X-Pac, and he had him sign it. And X-Pac takes a picture of it and texts it to Road Dogg. He goes, "Look at this." He's like, "I gotta send that to Brian." We're like, "The Road Dogg?" He's like, "Yeah, he'll love that." So that's always cool, running into, tomorrow night. I don't know if I'm going to make it out to pro wrestling night, but one of my all-time favorites is coming, Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yes.
I I've heard nothing but wonderful things about Jim Duggan, and he always brings his wife. I'm hoping to make it out tomorrow night before to meet him, but you know, scheduling. Tomorrow's
Yeah.
my niece's graduation party, so family first, then wrestling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we work regular, 9 to 5 jobs, and then we also have 2 kids, and so it's like it's so hard to be able to do all of the things we wanna do. It's like killing me that I can't get to Altoona tomorrow because I work too late
Yeah.
to make it.
My issue is, my niece has graduated and her graduation
Yeah.
party, and then my nephew's is on Saturday, and I'm like, "Man, pro wrestling night normally is in, like, August. It's really early this year." And the Altoona Curve have brought in tons and tons. Mick Foley, he was there a few years ago, Sergeant Slaughter, and I'll tell you what, and I said this to Cass, he was on my show Monday, and we were talking about Jim Duggan. I said, I always wanted to meet Jake the Snake, and a couple years ago, they brought him in. I never realized how tall Jake Roberts was. Like, I went like this, and I'm like, "I never realized how tall you were, sir." He goes, "Yeah, you'd be surprised." I mean, You see some of them, like, we met Kurt Angle, he came to the ballpark, and he was super nice, most of the time you run into 95% of the time, and then there's a few out there, but not everybody can be sweet, but everybody I've run into has been except for Tommy Rich, God rest his soul. I think Tommy Rich is dead, I might have just killed off Tommy Rich.
Oh, no. Well, I know Tracy Smothers is, but,
You
that was the only one I knew that was dead.
Okay, no, Tommy Rich is still alive. Tommy Rich, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kill you off. I knew Tracy Smothers recently passed. That one hit hard. I always enjoyed Tracy Smothers' work, and, we apologized to him. We're like, "We were the ones that told you guys that, but we were pissed off at Tommy Rich." He goes, "Oh." I was like, "We weren't mad at you or Guido," but he's like, "Yeah, Tommy gets drunk." I'm like, "Yeah, we noticed that."
That's funny. Didn't we see Tracy Smothers at, like, Pancakes and Pile Drivers or something when we were in New
We
York
got
for
w we got to see one of his last appearances where he
Yeah.
wrestled Su Yung at Joey Ryan's show, WrestleMania 35 weekend.
Were you guys at WrestleMania 35?
Yep.
So was I. Small world.
Did you freeze to death, and were you stuck waiting for a train until 3 AM?
Not the train. We drove. My buddy lives out towards Philly now, and we were just gonna go to Raw the night after Mania, and we always hang out most of the time and watch WrestleMania. It's something we've been doing forever. We were just on the phone, like, about a month or so before Mania. He goes, "Dude, it's at MetLife. We should go." And I'm like, "Yeah, when are we gonna get a chance like this again?" So he got on StubHub and found us seats in the upper deck. They're a little pricey, but heck, we're going to WrestleMania. I said, "I'll tell you what, you pay for the Mania ticket, I'll pay for parking, I'll pay for our tickets the night after Mania." He's like, "All right, deal." And I paid for our hotel room. We were smart. We stayed like maybe 10 minutes from the stadium and we opted to drive. Originally, we were going to take, the train, and I'm glad we didn't. Like, we were just passing mobs of people. I'm like, "What's going on here?" And then we got back to the hotel, we went to sleep, we get on social media the next morning and find out that they shut the trains down. Because if you remember, that went to almost 1 AM.
Yeah, we ended up being able to catch a train, um, before it, like, started pouring rain, but we stayed in Manhattan because I used to live in Manhattan, and so, like, I know how to maneuver everything, and so we
Yeah.
always just kinda stay, where I'm familiar with, and, we get back to Madison Square Garden area where Penn Station is. It was like, I don't even know what time in the morning. And his friend is like, well, let's walk a little bit so we can catch a cab. But it was like pouring cats and dogs. And I was like, there's no way. I was like, "Ah," we got one right away. But it was like, for me, the weekend was memorable in terms of all of the indie wrestling we watched while we were there. We went to a lot of indie shows and
See, we did fan
Mania was
access. We did fan access, and that was just like, if you're a WWE mark like me and him, we were like, "I wanna just" excuse me, "I wanna just take all this stuff home," you know? Sitting on the set of Piper's Pit, you're like, "Oh, man,
What?
Rowdy Piper." Oh, yeah, it was awesome.
He's my
We got
favorite.
the Yeah, we got in the original WrestleMania ring, they had it set up. It was awesome. I guess they still do it now, but not as much as they did then, so
I think once Vince cuts us all a check, the 3 of us can go to a WrestleMania and do the access. Because now it's like, I think
so
I'd
I
have to take a second job to be able to go.
Yeah. So I did finally get to do the WrestleMania. Nice. Nice. That's probably, like, my least favorite Mania, though.
That was my first. I've
My
been to
first
5.
my first was 35. We wanted to go to 40 when it was in Philly, and we were just like, "Let's just watch it," I wish we would've, 'cause that night too was just phenomenal. King of the Ring '98, when it was in Pittsburgh, I was there. That was my
Awesome.
first pay-per-view. And that was the infamous Hell in a Cell, Mankind Undertaker. I remember my buddy I was sitting with, he goes, just get ready. Mankind's going up on the cage." And we're like, "Yeah." And when that happened, oh my goodness, we
I
were
had
in the upper deck.
goosebumps.
Yeah, I wish, like, we have the technology that like, now that we did then, I'd have, like, a video, "Oh my god, my god, he's dead.
He's broken in half.
He's dead. I know he's dead. Son of a bitch."
So you mentioned technology. How has social media changed, the landscape both in radio and in pro wrestling throughout your time?
So in radio, it's made it a lot more interactive in real time. If you post something on social media and, Facebook algorithms are crazy. So trying to figure that out. But, you could post like, hey, today is such and such day. Do you like pizza, or what do you like on your pizza? So that's how that works. For me, I think social media has actually hurt professional wrestling because all you see now is people complaining. And it's always about the stupidest things, like the latest one. People couldn't wait till Vince McMahon retired. Now they want Triple H out. It's like, dude, what you know what I mean? Like, or then it's like, well, Tony Khan should buy WWE. Okay, well, that's not happening.
No.
So for me, like, I think social media has been a wonderful tool for like indie wrestling because it's anybody could see it. It's YouTube. I can get on there and type indie wrestling and watch an independent promotion in Tennessee that I wouldn't have been able to watch 30 years ago unless I did a tape swap. You know what I mean? That's how like ECW started. That people used to swap tapes and then they were on late at night and you'd set your VCR. So I think social media has helped independent wrestling. I try to stay off of, and some people will comment and they'll be like, an AI is really, people will make any graphic like, here's Cody Rhodes and his.
Yeah.
I saw one today. I was scrolling through Facebook. Cody Rhodes and his sister at an AEW show. And I'm like, that doesn't even look like them. It looks more like dashing Cody Rhodes. Like, what picture are you using here? So
Yeah.
I think social media has helped wrestling, independent wrestling. I think professional WWE, AEW, TNA, that level, fans just bicker about everything. But if anything, it's helped me connect with individuals from out of state that love wrestling. I'm talking to a guy and he lives in Baltimore area. He saw me wearing a wrestling shirt that I had as a kid. It was Bret Hart. I got it in 96 for ninth grade. I posted it on Twitter like 2000 2018, just like 2 years ago out of the blue. He messages me, he goes, "I wanna buy that shirt." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "That shirt's like 30 years old, man," you know? He goes, "No, I collect wrestling shirts." So I went through and he bought a bunch of them, and to this day, we'll still exchange text messages, and we're now planning to meet up and go to a live show because he's a little younger than me, and I'm like, "Well, I grew up watching the golden era at the tail end." You figure 91. New generation attitude era was mine. I love some of the stuff in the new generation. I thought Bret Hart having his jacket stolen, even as a kid, by Jean Pierre Lafitte was the funniest thing ever. Because here's Bret Hart, who's a multimillionaire, but he can't afford a new jacket because the pirate took it. You remember that storyline?
He probably does. I don't think
I
I know that
do.
All
one.
summer long, Bret Hart appeared on TV without his jacket, and he won it back at In Your House #3 in Saginaw. He beat Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Vince McMahon, like, he gets his jacket back.
That's awesome.
Like, literally, Jean-Pierre Lafitte took his jacket at the end of May, and all summer long, Bret Hart wrestled without his jacket because that pirate took it. I
The
sometimes,
creative.
I sometimes wish we had creative like that, though. You know,
Like,
it's
believable. A guy could get eaten by a bear and then come back. That's the kind of storyline.
as a mummy to boot, right?
Right? So we have probably about 10 to 15 more minutes. Do we want to hit some of these fun questions and closing
Yes,
Yeah.
questions?
yes. No, go ahead.
So as
Jump
a,
in here.
as a big music lover and, someone that, is involved daily with music, if you could have any entrance, no copyright law, what music would be your entrance?
Oh my. So when I backyard wrestled, I used Metallica's Leper Messiah. I think that would be perfect. Uh, and that actually came about as we were so when we first started, obviously we did it based like WWF, names. Like we had the Rocket. I was the Big Dave Man, which was a play on the Big Boss Man because I love the Big Boss Man. And then, like, we were using the video game music, because we had Owen Hart's music from Sega Genesis, and it's like, did it, did, really, really tinty. So then with AOL, we could actually start downloading like 40-second, 60-second. That's my beagle barking Roscoe if you
That's
hear
okay.
him. We could download like 60 seconds. So we got Owen Hart's music. And I'm like, dude, you still need to be the Rocket. And, then I became, at one point, I was Dynamite Dave. And then I turned heel as the Dean Dave Douglas. And I remember we couldn't find Dean Douglas's theme. Now you can on YouTube. But my buddy had a game called Battle Chess. And we used themes off of it because you could put the old CD-ROMs in the CD player and play the tracks. So we used the royal music from that. But yeah, I'd say Leper Messiah Metallica just because it has a soft spot for my backyard wrestling days.
That's so fun. I don't think I know that song. Maybe I have heard it, but
It's off
I'm
Master of Puppets.
okay. I'm sure I've heard it. I'll have to give it a listen
Probably.
just to see. Babe, you have great music taste, much better than mine. What would be your entrance music?
Oh, that's a tough one. Um, you know, I it's hard because you want to, maybe do something old school, you know, depending on also what you're doing. I'd look into something like maybe like a Bob Seger or a Tom Petty, something like that to, get the crowd going, get them hyped up a little bit.
Yeah.
So, X-Man, what is your favorite wrestling entrance, like, theme song of all time?
I have so many, but I think the best one is the $1,000,000 Man Ted DiBiase's. There was just something about that as a kid, even to this day when I like watch an old school show and that hits. It's just that and the money. I was like, wow, that is, fantastic. Hulk Hogan's Real American, even though that wasn't intended for Hulk Hogan. If you have the wrestling album, you know it was for Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda. But Real American, Shawn Michaels, Sexy Boy, another iconic one, especially the one where Sherry sings to. A lot of people forget about the Sherry version. Bret Hart's original Heart Foundation, as well as the new generation one that he uses. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker.
When that
There's
hits, I stop because they play
yeah,
it at football games and baseball games, and I'll be like, "The Undertaker's there!"
every time I hear it, I wait for the lights to go out. And sometimes, like, if I'm DJing a party and it's a bunch of wrestling fans, I'll hit that and somebody will run over and turn the lights out. We've done that a couple New Year's Eve parties where I'll just all of a sudden, dong. But yeah, Undertaker's entrance probably the most iconic. Um, if I'm going new school, I think the wrestling themes do lag a little bit, like, in the creativity, but that's the era. It's in both. It's in AEW, it's in TNA. Joe Hendry's is probably the one that's, really, like, when I heard that, I was like, "Whoa," that puts you in mind of something you coulda heard in, like, the '90s. That and, Danhausen's WWE theme. I'm obsessed with that. Like, I even posted when it came out, I was like, "Y'all give Def Rebel a bad name, but that Danhausen theme is solid." Very
I'm a
evil, very
Fanhausen.
nice. The funny thing is I saw him, you see him in indie clips back in the day and that, and then, he had showed up in AEW. I was like, "Holy crap, Danhausen's in AEW," and then they didn't, like, use him, like, for months or a couple years, actually. WWE got him, and I remember the internet was crapping all over it because they thought it was gonna be Chris Jericho, and I don't like to comment. I was like, "If you thought Chris Jericho was coming out of a casket at Elimination Chamber, you haven't watched wrestling." "Well, it should have been Vince McMahon." I'm like, why would Chris Jericho come out of a casket? Like, that just to me, like, no. Danhausen, yes, that's a gimmick, not Chris Jericho. Like, what would he do? I came out of a casket. I've been hiding in a box for 2 weeks." No, that doesn't work. Vince comes strutting out of a casket. I've been in here for 2 months."
That's hilarious.
So, as a commentator, who would be your Mount Rushmore of commentators?
All right. Well, I always had a thing for Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Jesse Ventura, um, Mike Tenay. He's a good one. Believe it or not, I love Vince McMahon commentary,
He was great.
especially
Wow.
especially the '90s new generation. when he's like Shawn Michaels coming down from the ceiling, all right, he just had that height. He was terrible at play by play and calling the moves. He'd just be like, what a move. Oh, you remember CM Punk would always do that. And there's times too, like sometimes when I'm on commentary, I'll go Vince McMahon for a little bit. I'll be like, what a move. Oh, he took his head off, you know. Um, yeah, but of today, at first I did not like Michael Cole, but now I'm a huge Michael Cole fan. Pat McAfee, to me, has been one of the best commentators, as well as Wade Barrett. At first, I thought Wade was pretty stale, but now I enjoy Wade Barrett. I do not like I do not like what's his name from ESPN. I can't think of his name off. He does SmackDown. He
Joe
just
Tessitore.
yeah, I like him for other sports, but for pro wrestling, he's just not there, you know. So, but Michael Cole today, but if my all-time favorite will always be Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse Ventura, or Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. My gosh.
He still
WrestleMania.
plays, like, the episodes of their show on YouTube. What's the show they had, babe, where they're, like, sitting in a room and then they take you to some wrestling?
Prime
Prime
time
time.
wrestling. Yep.
Yeah, he still plays that on YouTube
Oh,
to fall
they're
asleep too.
fantastic. They're fantastic. One of my favorite ones is when the Brooklyn Brawler attacks the Red Rooster out of nowhere. And to this day, my buddy will call and go, here's your hat. Don't forget your hat. And be like, kick him. But Gorilla Monsoon gets hit with a stole and sells it like he just got tombstoned by the Undertaker. He goes, oh, watch it on YouTube. It's great. Now, Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, you know, anything Bobby Heenan, you know, that
Yeah.
man, and Jesse Ventura. Wait a minute, Gorilla, you know.
He was my favorite heel commentator, like, doing the color commentary. He says some off the wall shit that is not okay
Yes,
today, but he was fantastic for the era that he did
yes.
commentary.
And some of the stuff that Heenan and Jesse said back in the day, you could not say now.
You can never repeat it now, but it is so good.
There's Chico Santana, McMahon.
Yes. And X-Man, where can we find you on the internet so people can follow you and take a listen?
You can find me on Facebook. Just look for the X-Man, the X-MAN, or if you type in the at X-Man 1982, that's where you can find me on Facebook. I do have a Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called this week, but I hardly ever use it. That's for me to post like, you know, crap towards like, you know, people that make me mad.
It's awesome. And we can also listen to your commentary for 814 Wrestling on their
Yes.
webpage on YouTube as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Going forward, my commentary style will be a little bit different, but we'll have fun. And I invite anyone to follow 814 Wrestling on Facebook. You know, look us up on YouTube, watch some matches, go back and look at some of the older stuff. You could probably find me in a match or two. AON's YouTube channel's a good one. All the original rundowns in their entirety are there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. For the local stalkers, they can find you also at the Doghouse Trivia Nights. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually do 2 trivia nights. I do one Tuesday night up at Park Hills Golf and Grill. That one starts at 6. And Wednesday nights, you can find me with trivia at the Doghouse in Bellwood, and that's with Nonstop Entertainment and DJ Skitty. So
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have you on at least like 12 more times because we have so much to talk about. Um,
anytime. This has been a
but
blast, guys.
we're so glad to have you.
Hey there, this is the X-Man, host of the Mix Morning Show on Mix 94.7, as well as commentator and now part owner of 814 Wrestling. You are listening to Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling, the podcast for wrestling fans.